I invested in the first for-profit hospice company years ago. And then 20 years, 25 years later, 30 years later, I invested in the most successful palliative care model. And I think, if you think about end of life, I think anybody's experienced that hospice is a beautiful thing and an incredible support for a family. It's also, if you look at palliative care, which hospice is true end of life care, like, supposed to be like the last 6 months, 3 months. Palliative care is that journey, where you can somewhat predict in the next year, year and a half, whether somebody is going to pass with pretty great certainty. This company Aspire created algorithms around it and connectivity to people's primary care doc, and they could look at a payer data and say this person is probably likely to die in the next year. And I think something like that where that the patient and the caregiver in the home is struggling. Like they're probably going to the hospital multiple times, that emergency rooms multiple times. I mean, I've experienced it. I had one year 7 times where my in-laws and my parents were in the hospital and they shouldn't have been there. Like that just wasn't the right answer, but people, ended up, there's a crisis and we're going to go to the ER, but there's really nothing they can do for them. And so I think that the right, like palliative care model, like Aspire, ended up keeping being having a more sane last year for the patient, the caregiver, giving them like virtual support and comfort, and then lower the cost for the system dramatically because so much is spent in the last year of a person's life in America that ends up being wasted. Really, it's not good for the patient. It's not good for the system, and I think that is like the win-win-win and it's good for the payer, they're saving money, it's good for the system, they're saving money, but most importantly it's good for the patient and the caregiver, in terms of the kind of care and the family. So that's certainly, I would say, one example of an area that's just like hugely impactful.